Hey guys, here today with another Shirogorov knife video. Today we have in front of us the Stellar. Now this is the production variant of the Stellar. The custom one had been out for a couple years. We've had the custom division and sprint run as well. And also the Stellaris, which is a composite material handled version, custom division version of that, the Stellaris. But now we finally have a unlimited run production model here, and this model had been widely anticipated ever since it had debuted, really being that Goldilocks size in between the F95 and the Neon size, which had been either too large or too small for some people. So the Stellar is finally here. Woohoo, a lot of people are really excited about that. I wanted to go over this knife today and kind of talk about what had changed with the production version here, because there are some really significant changes here that are actually unique to this specific model compared to the custom division and the custom, most notably the handle design. Now, we've seen similar changes to the handle design with the Quantum when that had initially debuted. The production titanium full-size Quantum had a handle design milling pattern that was unique to just the production knives, which was really cool. And it was also the first knife to have 3D milling on a titanium handle in the production lineup. Of course, the Neon Zero and the F95 Zero still are relatively flat. The Quantum had some contouring to it, significant contouring, which again was unique compared to both the custom division and the full custom versions. We are now seeing that here with the Stellar. I'm really glad to see this being a trend now. Sergey is really taking time to consider the production lineup, and really, instead of kind of watering it down, going from custom to custom division to production, he's really kind of making it its own thing, which I think is amazing. And of course, we're seeing that contouring here, this unique contouring, this 3D milling just in general on these production knives in titanium is really cool, and it's really what people want. People really seem to like titanium. They like the contouring of the custom divisions, and we're really getting a lot here with this knife, which I'm really looking forward to going over in today's video. But first, let's go and start off with the specs of the knife. Size comparison, especially important if you haven't watched any other Stellar videos. Going to be putting up against a full-size Quantum, which is pretty much around the same size as an F95, and a mini Quantum here, which is around the same size as a Neon. And you can see that the Stellar really slots in between those two here in terms of the size. Again, being that Goldilocks size, using the Shirogorov measurements of how they measure the blade, we have the F95 Quantum size at around 95 millimeters, the Neon at 85. The Stellar, of course, is then considered 90 millimeters to them. By the measurements that I like to use in terms of cutting length, we're looking at around just a little bit over 4 inches. The Neon size is around 3.5, and you then could expect that the Stellar is looking right around 3 3/4 of an inch here for cutting length. Let's take a look here at the knife overall size, and we're looking at around, let's see, just a hair over 8 1/4 inches when open, and when closed we are looking at just a little in between 4.5 and 4 3/4. Taking a look at the weight here, of course, just being overall smaller compared to the F95, probably expect it to be a little bit lighter as well compared to the Zero. But again, the Zero is a little bit chunky with that large back spacer and large blade stock. And yeah, 4.3, just a little bit over 4.3 ounces. That's coming in, again, in between the Neon Zero and the F95 Zero, being titanium knives. Now, taking a look at the knife here, the first production run. Now, I mentioned that earlier. What does that mean? Well, kind of like what Benchmade does with their knives, where they kind of laser engrave a number in it on the blade or something like that. This is to kind of celebrate the initial run of the knife, and it comes with 2 niceties here. Now, the first is we get a blade steel upgrade to S90V. Of course, many of you guys know the production for the premium MRBS knives, the steel that's most commonly used, or pretty much exclusively used, seems to be M390. So having a bump here to S90V is really nice. A lot of people really like the S90V that comes out of the workshop, and so it's widely sought after if you can get a knife in that steel. The second thing that's nice about this handle here is this kind of dual tone anodization that they've done here on the handle. Officially, it seems to be a blue-purple anodization. Really, what it comes off to me is an anodization that appears kind of a muted blue on the main portion of the handle here, but taking a look really closely at the ridges here, you can kind of see the blues really pop off. And you get these really bright, vivid blues on the high sections or the angles here on the high points of the knife and also on the ridges of the milling here on the contouring of the edges of the handle. A little bit hard to show up in this kind of neutral lighting, but in kind of outside in the sun, those blues really pop and are very vivid compared to the rest of the handle here. So this lighting here is probably showing it off at its worst. But this knife is really amazing just to look at in the light. It does have some purplish hues as well, but I really consider this finish to be kind of a light or a dark matte blue combined with really vivid blue highlights on the ridges here. Taking a look at the blade itself, if you are familiar with the custom or custom division Stellars, this probably will come as no surprise to you. The blade profile really hasn't changed that much compared to the higher tiers of Stellars. We have this really nice swedge that goes across the majority of the blade, this unique extract cut, which is similar to the cuts that we see on the F95 knives, but again, very unique to the Stellar in terms of the angles and contouring as well. We also have this jimping here on the back. Honestly, this jimping is not very usable. It's just located too far back to really choke up on as well, especially if you place your finger in front of the flipper tab on the ricasso here. I really do wish that the jimping was kind of located in this area here. I kind of understand that it probably doesn't flow well with the extract cut. Coincidentally, the Stellaris, the carbon fiber custom division model, does not have this extract cut, but instead has full-length jimping that runs across the whole length of the spine up until here, which actually is usable. But again, this little patch of jimping here, honestly, I don't find too much use to it. I'm not sure if it's really just meant to match up with the knife when closed, but it does add a little bit of flair here. I just don't see it being usable. Visual flair, that is. The blade stock is 3.5 millimeters. This really has been the standard blade thickness for the Stellar since its inception. There have been some customs in that 4 millimeter blade stock, but the custom division as well is done in 3.5. And with the new trend of knives being thinner, even at the production level, that 3.5 millimeters is pretty much expected. So it's nice to see that here, helping to reduce the weight of the knife just a little bit and also enhance the cutting power significantly as well. One thing that's really nice compared to other Shirogorov knives is the size of this ricasso here in front of the flipper tab. Really makes it nice to choke up on the Stellar since it's not as sharp of a transition or just more visible in general compared to, say, the Quantum or the F95. This also helps in ease of sharpening, I can assume. If you take a look here, the plunge grind and where the edge is, the actual secondary bevel here is significantly lower than on the where the plunge ends. Comparing that to something like the Quantum, where that secondary bevel ends is pretty close to the plunge, probably is going to help if you do sharpen your knives as well. So that's one thing I did notice comparing it to previous models. Now, taking a look back at the flipper tab here, the flipper tab has not changed compared to previous models, but something that I've noticed compared to, say, the Quantum or the F95 is we do have this nice gentle curve here that plays well with how it mates with the front of the handle here. And this gentle curve really helps in contouring with your finger here to get you a nice, comfortable flip. The flipper tab is located directly above the pivot, very typical of designs from Sergei. The F95 and the Neon are like this. The Quantum is a little bit more forward, which gives you a stronger detent feel, but also makes the blade flip out with much more authority. You can just get a lot more leverage the farther forward the flipper tab is. But in terms of flipping this knife, if you flipped an F95, you're going to get a very similar experience to this, which is to say a very positive flipping experience that isn't overly hard. The flipper tab is a nice appropriate size for those people who kind of had trouble with knives such as the Sigma or the Kami from the Sinkovich collaborations. Moving on to the rear of the handle here, you can see that the contouring has changed compared to the Custom Vision and the full custom Stellars. Now the top pretty much remains the same in terms of the overall shape. Again, we do have a different layout here where we have kind of this 45-degree milling with these pretty large and prominent ridges here. Taking a look at the back here, you can see we have this micro milling across the kind of curved rear portion of the Stellar. This rear portion that kind of has this nice falling curve to it is very characteristic of the Stellar handle design, and I think it's what separates it from, say, the F95 or the Neon, for example. But you can see here that Sergey did add different milling patterns compared to the Customs and Custom Divisions. But most notably on the bottom here, this contouring, which is present on the higher tier models of the Stellar, while taking a look at the front portion, while the production does have this front milling here to continue those curves, there is no contouring on the front portion of the Custom and the Custom Division. It's pretty much completely flat out, just like the main portion of the handle without this contouring. Really, that's the main significant change that I was talking about in terms of making this production Stellar something of its own design, again, like I described with the Quantum. And I personally really like this design. While aesthetically, I was kind of going back and forth when I first saw it. I was like, wow, this contouring really helps tie in the rest of the knife in terms of the overall shape. But I think I do prefer the way that the Stellar, the Custom and Custom Divisions are done, especially with that horizontal milling on the main flat portion of the handle. But I will say that the production Stellar with this contouring up front here does handle noticeably better. It's not a trivial change. It feels better in the hand, as you can see. Well, I'm left-handed, so the way that I hold the handle, but you can see here that the milling is duplicate on the left side as well. So when you hold the knife, the way that you hold it, your index finger is just, this contouring here is really helping in terms of grasping the knife. I don't have a Stellar here, but that's something that I did notice immediately. It did feel noticeably different compared to the production Stellar. So really great change. And again, really nice to see a unique feature that is here on the production that you're not seeing on the higher tiers of knives, something that just makes this unique to this production level here. Now, taking a look at the rear portion of the handle here on the rear, of course, this being a production model, you're not going to have blind screws or a lack of body screws on the show side of the handle like you do with the Custom Divisions and the Customs. That's pretty much to be expected. So we do have a normal Chicago type screw assembly here. You can see that here alongside with the Quantium, which has a rear body screw, but the Sprint Run or Custom Division level knife does not have a rear body screw. Despite these being different models, if we see a Mini Quantum, it's probably going to have a rear body screw, at least at the production level. But so, of course, that's to be expected. We also have the logo on the rear portion here, the pommel area. Really love this placement. I have been talking about it ever since Sergey had started doing it on the Neon, all the way back to the original Neon Light production. Now the F95 Zero, the Neon Zero, these titanium knives, and just knives in general have been locating the logo from kind of the front area here to the back, and I think it's a really nice balance alongside with the pivot screw. So that's really nice. The lanyard hole really hasn't changed, kind of a polarizing thing in terms of the Stellar design. A lot of people really think it's unnecessary, especially when you compare it to the normal Shirogorov knives, which have back spacers. The lanyard hole is usually integrated into the back spacer so that it's not visible when you're looking at the knife from the side here. But for some reason, Sergey has chosen, although this knife does have a back spacer, to have the lanyard hole go through both the back spacer and the handles as well. We've seen a similar design motif on the RJ Martin collaboration, the Russian Overkill. However, that's kind of really in line with the original RJ design. So it's curious to see that it's being done here on the Stellar as well, because this is of course an all Sergey design. But honestly, there are other things that I don't like with this knife aesthetically that supersede this lanyard hole, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But no change here compared to the full custom and custom division versions in terms of the lanyard hole placement. Taking a look at the other side here, the clip side, you can see we have the milling in the handle. Really nothing has changed here too much. I want to talk about the clip here. The clip has really not changed in terms of the shape. The milling is unique, of course, and this is something that also changes as the knife descends from the custom to the production level. Interestingly, the customs had a completely smooth clip. The custom division and sprint run had kind of this wavy milling or kind of angled milling that was a little bit different depending on if it was a sprint run or custom division, but it had some angled milling on this curved portion of the clip. Now that we have the production, we have what at first glance appears to be a very a smooth clip like the full custom. However, if you take a look very closely, let's see if I can get in the right angle here. Man, I don't know if I can capture this, but there is some horizontal milling on the curved portion of the clip. It's very slight, but again, at a distance, even this distance here, you probably won't notice it at all. But it is something that the customs have, is a completely smooth clip, which just requires a little additional finishing on Sergey's part, which of course is warranted on a full custom. Again, just like the other titanium sellers, we have this relief cut inside to help with pocketing the clip. It allows your pants to kind of ride under this a little bit more without having to make the clip taller. Really nice design idea, and it's nice to see this here as well. The clip is blind screwed, and it does go quite far back, much farther than say on the Neon Zero design or the Quantum as well. As you can see, the Quantum is a little bit inset here. With the Stellar, it pretty much goes all the way to the end, and the clip itself attaches to the knife pretty far back as well. So you get a really nice deep carry clip, which is something that a lot of people really enjoy. Now, another interesting thing too, and I didn't talk about it, but the pivot system, this is using the CPS indexed pivot system. There are 9 splines here, which allow you to orient the pivot screw when fully torqued down to the correct angles you want. And that is combined with, I don't think they have a name for it, like the CPS captured pivot system up front, but the rear body screw is also indexed as well. If you take a look, see if I can capture this, but it does have kind of a rounded triangle type shape that does insert in only 3 ways, which allows you to kind of match the angles of the screws here. You can see I have them pointed towards each other at the same angle, and the workshop does kind of clock the screws when they send you the knife. So that pretty much I can't imagine how much easier it makes their lives, because before that, with the free spinning screws for the pivot and the body, they're probably just trying to get them to align, which just takes a lot of time. I've done it myself. It's kind of annoying. Now, moving on to the inset lock design here. This is really another feature of the Stellar besides that Goldilocks size that people had really been wanting. They wanted that titanium lock, but they wanted something inset. Now, this inset lock design is something that we've also seen on the 111, but that being composite handled, people weren't really enthused about that. Some people who would prefer titanium knives, and also just the 111 is incredibly big. You know, the F95 is already too big for some people. The 111 is just really big for most people. So having this inset lock design in a titanium handle knife in this really nice size is really great. Of course, the major advantage of that, similar to a liner lock, is that you don't have to be particular about where you place your hand in opening the knife. Now, me being a left-handed person, the way that I hold knives, I don't put pressure on the lock bar. I kind of just put my thumb above and my fingers are on the show side of the knife. But for a lot of people, frame locks are a little bit difficult, because when you place your fingers on the lock bar trying to hold the handle, any pressure on this is going to greatly increase the tension on the lock bar, which is going to potentially make the knife difficult to open, especially if it has a hard detent to begin with. Now with this inset liner lock design, you pretty much eliminated that need, since you can pretty much grasp the handle and you're not going to be putting any more pressure on the lock bar. This is really great as well for, this is really great as well, the way that they've implemented it, because if you take a look here, unlike a liner, which is pretty much flush with the bottom of the handle here, they've added this so-called apron, which, as you can see, kind of extends out to cover this gap in between the liner and the handle here. And that really prevents any dust or anything from getting in between the handle. It also prevents, one thing I really hate about liner locks, I don't have a liner lock here right now, but that kind of pinching effect where you have a handle and the liner, and if the liner and the handle are pretty much flush on this surface here, you can kind of get your finger skin kind of caught in between as you're disengaging the lock. The apron, as they call it, sorry, I'm using the terms that they use, I really don't know what to call it, this little extension here, really helps prevent that by ensuring that the entirety of your finger is going to be contacting just the liner, and you won't be getting any of your finger trapped in between the scale and the liner and inadvertently pinching it when disengaging the lock. So really nice design there as well. And of course, like all of Sergey's designs here, taking a look at it head on from the side here, you can see that the way the lock is positioned, it is slightly proud of the handle on the show side. This just allows easy access. However, the handle is scalloped on both sides to allow ample room for your finger to disengage it. I know a lot of knives, they'll have the show side be flush with the liner, which makes kind of having to get, wedge your finger in here to disengage the lock kind of annoying, especially when combined with a thin blade stock and thin handle gap like this. But Sergey designs always accommodate for that, which I really love. Disengaging the lock easily is an important feature of a folding knife, in my opinion. Taking a look at the inside here, you can see the liner as well. It's attached via 2 screws. This is similar to the full custom and the titanium full customs, and also the custom divisions as well. One thing that is interesting is to note is if you take a look under the clip here, you can actually see the screws, one here and the other one right below the clip here. On the full custom and custom division, those screws actually are screw into blind tapped holes on the clip side of the handle, but on the production it seems to be through holes. Interestingly, even more interestingly, the Stellaris with that composite material handle does have through holes, which has through holes because the screws actually screw in from the outside and then are covered by the clip. So again, just kind of different variations. Very interesting to see that it's not blind tapped like the custom division full custom versions. Taking a look here at the inside of the backspacer, you can see as well, there is this little flat part on the inside. Really not sure what that is. On the custom and custom vision, I do believe that it's just completely flat on the inside without this little depression in the middle. So really wondering what that's for, especially since there's no marking or engravings on the inside. One interesting thing to note, however, is since the logo has moved to the handle here on the show side on the back, the logo on the customs and custom divisions are on kind of this rounded portion right below the liner on the back here. But since the logo is already on the handle, that part is blank, but you can kind of see the way that it's rounded off here. That is kind of a vestige from the full custom and custom division models. Another thing that, of course, has changed, the custom divisions didn't have it, but the full customs had pins here running along in front of the backspacer, and the titanium ones also had a pin here on the bottom of the backspacer on the back here. This, of course, is not present in the custom division and the production model, of course, so that's another change as well. Of course, we have internal milling here. The internal milling is actually remarkably similar to the full custom and custom divisions. Really not too much has changed there. And of course, that's contributing to the relatively light weight of the knife. But again, it's really nice to see some things have changed compared to the custom and custom division, and a lot of things that have stayed the same. That blade shape, the internal milling, really nice to have those features stay the same. And lastly, here we have towards the pivot system here, we do have MRBS with the steel washer underlays. That is to be expected. And lastly, one other cool note here is on the full custom Stellars, this is where Sergey signs his name here, right in front of the bearing area. But as, of course, there is no signature on the production models by Sergey, we have the MRBS logo here, which is kind of a cool replacement. Really nice touch if you know where the signature is on the full custom, which is why I'm very sure is why he's put it there. But overall, really like the knife. There's really not too much I can fault with this knife. Besides the clip design, I actually didn't mention it before, even though I said I was. The clip design, I think, is just a little bit plain to me. I was really hoping for a milled clip like we see on the F95 or a Stellar. Or the Quantum here. Not to say that this isn't milled. The fact is that it is milled, but it doesn't look like a milled clip. It kind of looks like a bent clip. And in fact, I feel like if you take a look at some of the older F95 clips from way back, like years and years ago, they had a similar clip to this, but it probably was a stamped clip. And I feel like this is kind of an homage to that. We do have this kind of sharp transition here, which I'm really not too sure of. Especially if they were trying to emulate that kind of retro stamped clip aesthetic, why they would do that, or why Sergey would design it like that. But more importantly, I have noticed that, and I didn't notice this on the productions and the full customs, but the way that this clip is positioned, it really, when the clip is in your pocket, you really want to put your finger kind of on this curved portion. It really matches the contouring of your finger quite well. However, when you do that, you're inadvertently putting excessive pressure on the contact patch, which makes the clip a little bit difficult to remove. The correct way to remove the Stellar, I think, is to kind of grab it like this and really give it a firm tug from the back portion here. But it's just so natural to want to do that with this curved portion. Now I want to go and take a look at other knives to think about what I was doing here, and I don't know if it's the rigidity of the other clips, but with the Quantum, I kind of just naturally do that since there's no curved portion. But with this curved portion on the Stellar clip, my finger just naturally wants to rest really deep into the clip when I pull it out. And of course, putting pressure on this portion is directly putting pressure on that contact patch of the clip, which I've noticed is making the clip difficult to remove. This might just be this particular example of the production Stellar having excessive clip tension. We did see something like that with the Neon Zeros. The first ones that came out, the factory had acknowledged and fixed that. But something to note, and I'm very curious to see what people are saying about the clip as these start to roll out. And speaking about rolling out, the whole first run limited thing, this again is going to be just for the initial knives. Once the first production run knives run out, there is going to be the normal production, which probably isn't going to have this blue anodizing, this blue-purple dual anodization, and will probably be in that M390 blade steel as well. So it looks like, taking a look at the Recon One site, all of the first production ones are sold out, but we can expect more to be coming in the future. But again, of course, just the normal production run as well. But overall, that's pretty much it. Lanyard hole and the clip, pretty much the only things I really don't like. Otherwise, I do really love the Stellar design. I do think it is the correct size. Do I prefer the F95 design aesthetically a bit more? Yeah, but this is pretty much going to be, if you're going to have one Shirogorov, this is probably going to be it. There's just so many really cool things about it. The inset lock is going to give you objectively a nicer advantage over frame lock, unless you believe in the whole kind of squeezing down the lock bar for hard use kind of thing. The size is really nice for most people, both blade and handle size. That thin blade stock over the F95 Zero. And just for the first production ones, it's really nice anodization pattern and premium steel as well. But anyways, that's it for this knife. Hopefully, if I get my hands on the normal production version whenever that comes out, maybe I'll do a video on that one as well, if there are any changes. I don't expect any changes, so this should be the Stellar production video that you want to see. But otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It ran quite long, but I'm glad I was able to fill it up with useful content, hopefully for you guys. And I'll see you guys next time.